the NPA's Asset Forfeiture Unit, together with the SIU, have secured a preservation order for some 6.5 million rand in 4 high-value properties, financial transfers and a vehicle linked to the looting of funds at the National Lotteries Commission. The 2 law enforcement agencies say the orders ensures that the assets are preserved until a forfeiture order is granted. Let's understand this a bit better for you. Bring in the SIU spokesperson, Kganyago, who's with us via our video link this Thursday. So, as always, thanks for your time. Welcome to the SABC News Channel. We've been speaking about the misallocation of National Lotteries Commission grants for years now. So maybe as a start, you can help us understand what this preservation order ultimately allows you to do.
Good morning, Ayanda, and good morning to your viewers. This preservation order allows us to preserve this house and the agricultural land and the car in a good condition until we have now applied for the forfeiture order, which will then give us permission to go and sell these properties and recover the money. People must remember that these are transactions that were done during the lottery, where people were given money to do certain things and they did not do what they were supposed to do. Therefore, we went to the court and we said to the court, we have got evidence, and we provided the evidence to the court, and the court agreed with us that this money was used from the monies that were supposed to be used for other things, but diverted to these properties and the car. And therefore, that's why we were granted this preservation order. Now, they have an opportunity to go and defend themselves. If they don't defend themselves, we then go and get a forfeiture order, and therefore those properties will be sold.
Fair enough. Can you walk us through the modus operandi here, Mr. Kganyago? I mean, I think in many people's minds, the money goes from the NLC to dodgy organizations and, of course, is used for other means. But in some instances, if I've got this right, sometimes the money is paid to a legitimate NGO, but instead of that NGO doing the work it's meant to, it's diverted.
Definitely, Ayanda, and that's basically in most of the transactions, that's what is happening. In some of the instances, you find that the details of the NPOs are then transferred into changed in terms of bank accounts, and they are then hijacked to somebody else. That is the one part. In the other instances, they then collude with the owner of this NPO, and then they say, we transfer money to you, but you then, after that, has to transfer the money to somebody else. And in most cases, you find similar companies like Iron Bridge, which is always coming up in most of them. And then that money is then taken to the conveyancing attorneys, and then it is used to buy property. Therefore, when we follow this money, we are able to see all of these transactions, and we ask everybody who is involved to say, why were you given this money? What is it for? And then we realize that it was not meant for what it was intended. But we also go to these places where, for example, if they say the money is going to be used to buy, to build a rehabilitation center, we go and see whether it was built. And in most cases, it was never built. The money was just used for other things other than what it was intended for.
Yeah, and this is no small change. I mean, in total, it's 6.5 million rand. But when you look at the individual cases, sometimes it's as much as 1 million rand that is being diverted in some instances to buy properties. I wonder if we can speak about some of these cases. In one instance, a Hilux was bought. Money was meant to go for impaired athletes, and I suppose none of that actually got to them. What are some of those stories, as it were, about where this money was meant to go and where it ultimately went?
Yes, the first one, which is the one in Ekurhuleni, we had a company called Konani Funzo Learning Center. The money was supposed to be taken there to deal with the learning center, but it ultimately was transferred to a Chikova Graduate Academy, which then diverted some of this money to a law firm in order for them to buy a property, which is an ERF in extension in Ekurhuleni, in Lakewood Extension, in Ekurhuleni. And then the other one is the one that we are talking about, which bought a property in Sable Hill Waterfront Estate in Pretoria, where this money was transferred to the South African Sports Association, which was intending to do an event in Bloemfontein for the intellectually impaired athletes. But at the end of it all, they got about 30 million rand, and then 3.9 of that 30 million rand was then transferred to a company called Iron Bridge, and then the traveling agency, which is owned by a cousin of the former COO of the Lottery Commission, and then that money was then transferred to buy a property for under the name of Molwanzwa Siweya Family Trust, which was not part of what it was supposed to be dealt with. And then the other one is the holding that an agricultural holding that was purchased from the money that was given to a foundation called Innovation, but ultimately the money was used to buy an agricultural holding in Gauteng under the name of Dimagazo Petro, who is the sister to Terry Petro.
Sure. Terry Petro, the actress.
Yes.
All right. I suppose people will make their own links as far as that is concerned. I started off by mentioning, Mr. Kganyago, that this is not new. You know, I remember speaking about the misallocation of grants at the NLC literally years ago. It might have even been close to 5 years ago. And I suppose the question becomes, to what extent you reckon we're getting around to this money, which is actually meant to benefit, in the main, marginalized communities, can be safeguarded, because whilst on the one hand it's promising that you're able to use law enforcement structures to try get that money back, ideally that money shouldn't be making its way to these hands to begin with.
No, I agree with you, Ayanda. The money is not supposed to have gone there. And ultimately, and as much as we are still continuing the investigation, we have already engaged with the board and the new management of the National Lottery Commission to make sure that there are checks and balances, to make sure that they are able to stop this process, because we do not want to continue investigating on one side while new processes and new looting happens. Therefore, they have assured us, they have assured Parliament, and they are working with us on a daily to make sure that the leak that happens from their side is closed, and then we can only deal with the previous things that happened and then close them up and recover all the money, because that is what is important for us to do. Because if we do not do that, we do what we call systemic recommendations after each and every investigation, so that we are able to say to this institution, these are the systemic problems that we found, and this is how you can close those gaps.